Hi, uh, this is my new book. Usually the videos are of me reading a book. I'm not going to read from this one. I'm not even going to read the introduction like I did with my Santa Claus one, but I'll say a lot of things that are in the introduction. This is 366 Days, 366 Musicals, a musical theater trivia book and diary. And essentially, the top part of each page is the trivia book, and the bottom part is the diary. Now, there are a lot of things you can do with the diary part. You can use it as a diary, a daily diary, and just write whatever happened that day. I guess it would only last a given year unless you don't stick to the days, but you just write as much as you can, and maybe one page is 2 or 3 days. I don't know. You can use it as a birthday book. You can open to July 5th and list the people you know whose birthdays are on that day, so you're not beholden to Facebook for remembering when people's birthdays are. You could use it as a phone book, an address book. Um, you could keep track of other anniversaries that are not birthdays. What I hope people do is that if, for instance, they have seen Bells Are Ringing, which is November 25th, now they read what I've written about it, what's important to me about it, a little bit of history about it, and then on the bottom part, they write about their personal experience. Did they see the revival in 2001? Were they in it? They should write their own memories of it. And if anyone can manage to fill up the whole thing and can authenticate that they saw every single production, and I'm going to doubt it, but if they can authenticate, there's a prize in it for them. I don't know what it is. It's probably tickets to a musical. It might even be tickets to a musical that they've already seen, because they will have already seen a lot. But if anyone does, there's a way to get in touch with me in the book. So yeah, I hope that it's that people hope that people buy it, but I hope that they actually, in addition to reading it, that they write in it, and it becomes something that years from now, or years from whenever they start, they can page through with friends and family and say, "Oh, remember when that happened? Remember when we saw that?" It's mostly obscure musicals. Phantom of the Opera and The Sound of Music and their ilk are in there because they're the most famous popular musicals, and I have personal experience with them, and I share several of my own personal experiences in the book. So of course those musicals are in there. By their very nature, I have experience with them and that I wanted to share. But also, on the ones that I list on the back, 21 Chump Street, Island of the Lost Coeds, Cinderella Meets the Wolfman, stuff like that is in there. And let's see, September 22nd, Sherry. There's an obscure one. Those aren't obscure. Neither of those. June 12th, Yours, Anne, based on the diary of Anne Frank. April 19th, The Night Boat. Mostly musicals like this. March 28th. Well, I won't give everything away. But that's the idea. That was the idea of the original Tumblr that it's based on, that I did in 2015, 2016, which happened to go into a leap year, hence 366 instead of 365. And I always wanted to turn that into a book, but only recently did I have the idea of doing it like this, with the lines on the bottom of the page for people to add their own experiences, turn it into kind of a musical theater memoir, which is it essentially is for me. There are only a few anecdotes in here from musicals that I have personal experience with. There are only a few anecdotes from musicals I have personal experience with that are not in here. But yeah, that's it. And I wanted, if you've seen my other books, I use paintings that are hundreds of years old, because they're public domain. They're not copyrighted, and I can use them, and they make for a nice cover. For this one, I knew from looking up Broadway theaters that there are a lot of pictures like this, public domain pictures from the very earliest days of these theaters, and I wanted a black and white cover. I wanted a nice theater scene, and I didn't find this doing that research. I found this when I was researching A Connecticut Yankee, based on the Mark Twain novel, and it's at the Vanderbilt Theater, which no longer exists, and the picture is from 1928, I think 1928, and the copyright was not renewed. I've learned a lot about copyright and public domain since I've been doing things like this. The copyright was not renewed, which means it's in the public domain, this picture. And so I was able to use it for my cover, and I really like it. I was never in a Connecticut Yankee, but I sang the song "My Heart Stood Still" at a musical theater summer training program that I was part of. My first year doing that. Was it my first year? No, it was my second year, I think, doing that. Um, so I was and it's a nice, great dynamic picture. You got a guy dressed as a knight back here. You got, I guess, the director directing. You can see the house. It's from the stage. It's just, and the theater doesn't exist anymore. And and a lot of the musicals in here may never be put on again. May never have been put on. There's at least a few of those, but they still count. And but that's the point with something like this, was including things mostly not Phantom of the Opera, mostly not the big five Rodgers and Hammerstein musicals, mostly musicals that probably aren't going to warrant much mention in other books. In some of these, I think it might be the most information ever gathered about the musical. Publicly available, that is. The people who wrote them and are still around, they know more. But the last thing I'll say, in addition to, I want people to fill it out and make it their own book. In addition, like, I'm the reason to buy it, you're the reason to keep it. Well, curiosity is the reason to buy it, not just me, because who cares? But curiosity is the reason to buy it, but you are the reason to keep it. You make it, you infuse it with yourself and your memories for posterity. But the last thing I want to say is, one of the last things I say in the introduction is, part of this is, I had hoped, and I still do, to put on the first production in decades of certain musicals that I've included in here that are, for the most part, forgotten. I won't say specifically what, but a couple of musicals that I included only exist in the form that they do, in their complete form, today, and can be put on because somebody, they fell into obscurity, they fell apart, the material was thought lost, and somebody put it back together, tracked it all down, put it back together, and put on a production. And so one of the things that I hope is that this inspires people, whether they have the resources now or whether one day they might have the resources to be the person who puts the musical back together so that it can exist for posterity. And maybe it shouldn't be put on, and maybe it never will again, but just to have it in the record, to have it so that people can look at it, that it's not lost. So if that's you, or if it might one day be you, if this might fall into the hands of someone who runs a theater company who does exactly that but never heard of some of the musicals in here and thinks, okay, this is my next couple of seasons, or some kid reads it and then years from now that kid has the resources and they remember. I would have loved this book as a kid. I love it now, but I would have really loved it as a kid. This was exactly the sort of just everything and more, information-wise, that I'm curious about, all in one place. But yes, that this might inspire people to do what people mentioned in the book have done and let musicals live again and let them be remembered. So that's that. There's a link in the description below. It'll take you to the Amazon page that you'd get to if you search to my name. It'll have this, should be on the top, and then my other books are there. You can read them too. Mostly Santa is good for Christmas time, and Cupid Takes a Holiday it's good for Valentine's Day, but it's really an all year round sort of thing. And they all could be, all the books. Buy all of them, please. But yeah, 366 days, 366 musicals. What musical did I put on your special day?